Tom Brady was roasted by a bunch of celebs on Netflix. This was a live roast. It was probably one of the biggest cultural events of the year. It's really because we don't have any common culture anymore that these one-off events bring people together. And this was a huge one. Really big get for Netflix. I won't go through the whole thing. There were some pretty brutal jokes at Tom Brady's expense. Tony Hinchcliffe was one of the most prolific and on-the-money comedians of the night.
Tom is afraid of the Giants, which is why Kevin Hart is hosting tonight. All night, he's been using the stool that Aaron Hernandez kicked out from under himself. Kevin is so small that when his ancestors picked cotton, they called it deadlifting. Tom Brady is a patriot, which is surprising considering he looks like a Confederate Clearly your ex-wife takes after you. I hear she's out there draining right now. The appearance from the great Ron Burgundy, huh? A whale's vagina, which reminds me, Kim Kardashian's here. She's had a lot of black men celebrate in her end zone. Kim, word of advice, close your legs. You have more public beef than Kendrick and Drake. Thank you guys. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Netflix.
So I say that Tony Hinchcliffe was one of the most on the money and, rapid fire comedians of the night because it's true. It's not exactly my flavor of comedy. Some of his jokes were pretty funny. A lot of it was just vulgar. It was just really, really vulgar, which is what these roasts have become increasingly in recent years. So relative to the other comedians, he was kind of on the money. It was just a lot of that, basically, throughout the night. Jeff Ross, who's kind of the grand poobah of these roasts, he had slightly elevated material, but even he got in trouble with the honoree, Tom Brady. It was the only time all night people had these vicious attacks, not mean-spirited attacks, but vicious jokes on Tom Brady all night. He took it, he laughed, he was a perfect roast honoree. But then Jeff Ross made a joke about Robert Kraft that sent Tom Brady up from his chair.
That scrawny rookie famously walked into the owner, Robert Kraft's office and said, "I'm the best decision your organization has ever made." Would you like a massage? I love Robert Kraft. I love
that again.
Okay. You can see. Look, it was a good joke. This is one of the better jokes of the night, actually. And Jeff Ross is a very talented roaster. But Tom Brady said, "Look, you can make jokes about me, but don't you make any jokes about Robert Kraft." And he didn't. Jeff Ross is sort of said, "Okay, all right, I'll move on. No big deal. Sorry, Tom." But the night went off with a lot more vulgarity and all kinds of raunchy jokes. I guess not at Kraft's expense so much, but at everyone else. And it was perfectly fine. It was it was as good as any modern roast. But it made me think about the greatest moment at any of these Comedy Central, Friars Club, now Netflix roasts in the last 20, 30 years. And the undisputed best moment, there were some good ones. There was the roast of Donald Trump. That was hilarious. There were a lot of good. Greg Giraldo was pretty funny. All these guys. The best one by far was when the late, great Norm Macdonald, of course, gets up there at the roast of Bob Saget, and everyone else is doing material just like that kind of material. Your genitals are so big that they're, and there's all this kind of disgusting bodily humor. And then Norm gets up there and does this.
John Stamos, I want to start with John Stamos, our esteemed roast master. John has a reputation for being a bit of a swinger. Did you know instead of an umbilical cord, John was born with a bungee cord? John likes the ladies, it's true. He has a one-track mind, and the traffic on it is pretty light.
Norm just totally straight-faced. Does not crack for a second.
John Stamos, it only takes one drink to get him drunk, but he's not sure if it's the 9th or 10th or 11th. And Cloris Leachman is here. Cloris? Cloris, if people say you're over the hill, don't believe them. Why, you'll never be over the hill, not in the car you drive.
That's the one. That's the one for me. Whenever I think about this set, it was all jokes like this. It was all jokes from the Dean Martin roasts, all jokes from the 70s. So why did he do it? In the room, you could, if you listen to the tape in the crowd, you couldn't tell, did they think Norm was bombing? You look at the comedians on stage, they're all dying. I thought it was just hilarious. Well, what was he doing? Norm explained himself one time. He was asked, what were you doing at the Bob Saget roast? He said, oh, well, they told me to be shocking. And so that's how I was shocking. That's the only way I knew how to be shocking. And it was legitimately shocking. It was totally different from all the other performances at all the other roasts in recent years, up to and including this most recent one for Tom Brady. And that, I'm not just mentioning all of this because I like stand-up comedy and the roast jokes are funny. I'm mentioning all of this because it has real political implications. If you want to stand out in comedy, in show business, and in politics, you need to subvert expectations. If you just give the people exactly what they expect and you play within the perfectly well-defined rules that have been established for, since the last time someone upended the rules, you're not going to do very much. You're not going to get the biggest laughs of the night. You're not going to leave any impression. You're not going to advance the whatever your object is, be it in show business or politics, as you might like to. So how do we be shocking now in politics? How do we subvert expectations in politics? What does that mean politically today? To me, I think I have an answer to it. Because I don't think left and right quite works anymore. You're really seeing this with the protests, the campus intifada. It's coded basically left and right. The pro-Palestine people are on the left. The pro-Israel people are on the right. But it's a little confusing. There are some pro-Israel left-wingers. There are some radically anti-Israel right-wingers. It's kind of a fringe statistically, but especially when you get to the younger conservatives and leftists, it gets a little bit more jumbled up. And it's not just true. I mean, that's one war and one political issue, but it's true across a lot of other things. You're seeing a lot of young conservatives upend Republican Party orthodoxy for the last 2 or 3 decades when it comes to things like trade, when it comes to things like drugs and porn and government regulation even. So what are we looking at now? It wasn't always just the left and the right for American history. In the early days of American history, it was the Federalists versus the Democratic Republicans. Right? It was John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson. And those debates kind of map onto modern left and right, but they're actually a little bit different. Then in the 19th century, it was North and South. Then it became, in the 20th century, it became capitalists versus communists in the height of the Cold War. And that informed how the right talked about money and talked about freedom and talked about social issues, and the left was always kind of commie sympathetic, even if they didn't want to admit it. That informed how they viewed Russia. In the 20th century, the left loved Russia. Now the left hates Russia because the circumstances have changed. Now we talk about left versus right, but that's kind of breaking down too. Some people are saying Tucker Carlson's economics are left-wing. He's talking more like a leftist than a right-winger, or the integralists, the common good conservatives, the populists. I guess populism is a good term for this. You saw this especially in 2016 when the breakdown seemed to be the people versus the establishment. Or when you look at the campus intifada, I guess it's the Muslims versus the Jews, or some people on the extreme fringes of the left or on the right, they'd probably like it to be the Christians versus the Jews or something. I don't know. I don't think that one's kind of been tried before. I don't know if that's going to totally, the people versus the Jews. I don't know if that's totally going to work, but there are people calling for all sorts of a new split in a new political order. Even of all the ones I just mentioned, the closest that probably would have some cachet that might sell is the people versus the elites, the establishment that's increasingly unresponsive to the people. But even that is limited because at a certain point, you hope that your side gets some political power, and then what? Then you become part of the elite. Then you become part of the establishment. You can't just be defined by your your position outside of the political order, because then it doesn't give you any room to gain power in the political order and do stuff. So you need something even beyond just the feeling of populism. What is it? What is it? I think I have the answer, which I'll tell you in just a moment. Go to CozyEarth.com, use promo code Knowles. As Mother's Day approaches, there is no better time to celebrate the moms in your life. This Mother's Day, consider giving her the gift of Cozy Earth, a luxurious sleep experience she truly deserves. Cozy Earth sheets redefine luxury and comfort. Crafted from viscose bamboo, they are temperature regulating, ensuring a restful night's sleep for both hot and cold sleepers. I absolutely love Cozy Earth. Sweet little Elisa is crazy about it. She is insisting that we get more and more versions of the sheets. The guest room, who knows, maybe we get another one for our room. Well, it's Mother's Day. Maybe now is the time to do it. Treat a special woman in your life to the luxury she deserves with Cozy Earth bedding and sleepwear. She deserves it. Don't forget to use promo code Knowles at checkout for 35% off at CozyEarth.com. After placing your order, select podcast in the survey and select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. That is CozyEarth.com promo code Knowles, Knowles. I think the answer to where the political alignment goes that is shocking, that has cachet, that wins people over, that is a broad movement. It doesn't have the narrowness of, the very online right or the campus intifada or, these kind of tiny things, is another major topic of political debate these days in the commentariat, and that is the trads. Trad life, trad wives, that tradition, the trads versus the radicals. I think that is getting closer to where the real political divide is right now. Because what does it even mean to be trad? Does it mean, you go around LARPing? Does it mean that you adopt some anachronistic costume or political? No, I think to be trad there are all sorts of implications. There are implications that are anthropological. You think that men and women are different rather than the same, and rather than thinking men can become women. That'd be an anthropological aspect of being a traditional person. I guess a generational aspect of it would be that you have children. You're not closed off to the possibility of life. A financial aspect to it, it might be that you save your money. You're not profligate. You don't just spend your money on total nonsense. A liturgical aspect of it might be that you go to church, first of all, and that you go to churches that are more traditional, that have more of liturgy to it, that have a little more smells and bells. The reason I think this plays is because all these things are happening. You're seeing younger people having less sex outside of marriage. You're seeing younger people returning to not only to religion, but to more traditional forms of religion. It's just a social fact right now. A lot of people are converting to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy to some degree. And even among non-Christians, you're seeing Jews who had been largely secular for many, many decades, they're becoming a little bit more orthodox, more conservative, and a little bit more orthodox. Even people who were total atheists, they're at least beginning to accept that God exists. You're kind of seeing those movements. People recognize that family kinds of matters. A new awareness that maybe we need to start having kids. The fact that trad wives have become a kind of internet meme, that the trad life is even a topic of discussion now, really matters. So we can go through all this highfalutin, kind of abstract discussion about what it means to be trad. But the reason I think this plays politically, it has nothing to do with any of that, which is maybe interesting for the commentators and academics and people who are nerds. But the reason it plays politically is because what it pretty much all boils down to, this trad life, is just being normal. Just being a normal person and not chopping yourself up and dyeing your hair all sorts of crazy colors and shrieking at your dad and living in a communist polycule and, choosing not to have children and all the stuff that modern people do that's really weird and disordered. It's kind of just being normal. And being normal is really attractive and it's really great. I'll just speak from personal experience here. Not that, we're all a little eccentric, a little quirky. I certainly have my quirks, but I endeavor to live in a way that is normal. And normal has two meanings. Normal means according to the norms of a society. So that part is a little bit relative and kind of changes over time. And also normal refers to objective standards like moral norms, ethical norms, things that are permanently true, eternal things. And ideally, we like to bring the former into line with the latter. We want our society's norms and standards and taboos to accord with eternal truths, because then we're really going to flourish, because the primary purpose of statecraft is do good and avoid evil and allow human beings to flourish in community together. And I endeavor to do that. I'm from New York, very liberal place. I went to a very radical left-wing school, and then I lived in LA, and I worked in show business. I've worked in politics and show business my whole life. I've been a professional actor, done all sorts of crazy parts in TV and film and theater. I've worked on all sorts of crazy political campaigns, and I was single throughout most of my 20s. But it occurred to me, living a traditional life is kind of nice. So I get married, have kids, as I've been blessed. Well, I don't have the kids. I'm not. I guess some modern men think they can get birth. I don't think I can get. My wife has had the kids, so we've been open to life, settled down. Try to live like a normal. Go to work. Come home, eat dinner, occasionally even watch a baseball game, read books, smoke cigars, do normal things, and it's really great, man. And probably most important of this, have a great church, great community there. See my friends, see my family, when I can, even the ones that, when they live kind of far away. And so I know that I'm not giving you a statistical read here, okay? I'm just giving you an anecdote. But my friends who live the trad life are happier than the ones who don't. I got a lot of friends who don't. Told you I lived in New York and LA, went to crazy school. My friends who are endeavoring to live that trad life, they are uniformly happier than the ones who reject it. And what's even wilder is the tradder my friends are, the happier they are. And I know it's just an anecdote, but guess what? The plural of anecdote is data, okay? There seems to be something to this. It's my own recommendation to you. Try to be normal. Try to live according to tradition, which is not some old dusty thing, but it's really vibrant. It's the sort of thing that endures throughout history and is really strong and vibrant. It's survived the vicissitudes and craziness of time where impermanent things just go away. I'm telling you that personally, it's really good. But I'm also making perhaps the more urgent observation, at least for our political order, which is that politically this stuff sells. If you can be on the side of the American way of life, if that's what we're defending the American way of life. I like the good old American way of life. That's what the left wants to take that away from you. And they want to make you now all wear like keffiyehs or something. Muslim headscarves is the latest iteration of this. And they want to upend your economy and your family and abolish marriage and kill your babies. And they want to take away your way of life. And we want to preserve your way of life. That's the divide between the trads and the radicals. And radicals can't succeed if they can't hold the common sense. That was an observation of the Italian communist Antonio Gramsci. If we just hold on to that common sense, that trad radical divide, I think that is the best seller. I know people have their own pet ideologies, or they hate some particular group, or they're obsessed with some philosophical or ideological idea. That stuff's not going to, you need to have currency, social currency. You need to be able to play coast to coast and in the middle of the country. You need to have a grasp of the common sense. And you're already seeing a social movement toward, hey, can we all try being normal again? That is shocking. A candidate getting on stage and saying, hey, I'm here so that we can all be normal again. That, I strongly believe, plays. That was really good, huh? Ring that bell. Subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.